Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark, and I'm from the Learning Institute of KMUTT. I'm going to present you our design of an online peer assessment system for a large classroom using student-defined criteria. Here's the motivation. Formative assessment is an interactive assessment of student progress in order to identify their learning needs and the way to change the teaching styles to suit their needs better. This is all good and easy to do if we have just a few students. But what if we have a lot of students in the classroom? It becomes more difficult to provide timely feedback to all the students. One way to solve that problem is to have the students give feedback to their peers. But then, by using peer assessment, we need to address the issues of quality of feedback, anonymity, and incentives to the student evaluators. And we propose that by using web technology, we can address all these problems one by one. Our contribution in this work includes two phases or two iterations of design. That means we have two separate designs. And for each design, we test it in a real classroom, and we report the lessons that we learned from the real use in the classroom. The classroom is for the software usability class, consisting of 74 computer engineering and industrial design students. And those lessons are drawn from an analysis of qualitative and quantitative data. I told you we have two designs. In the first iteration of the design, we give students individual assignments. After the students submit the assignments, the work is rated by 3 other peers. At the same time, each student has an obligation to rate or evaluate 3 other students' work. After the first iteration, we learn some lessons, and we adjust the design of our methodology a little bit so that it becomes a group assignment, and we focus more on the comments, the quality and the quantity of comments, rather than the reliability of the scores from the friends. And each student now rates or evaluates only one other student's work. That means he or she can give more time to write more helpful comments. And this is the most important distinction. In the second iteration, after the student submit the work, get evaluated, they can go back and improve their homework and resubmit it again for another round of peer evaluation. And we can see the progress of the students throughout this process. After all that is done, we have the student reflect on the student survey, using the student survey to reflect on the effectiveness or what they wish to see in the peer assessment system. In the first design, as I said, each student rates 3 other friends. At the same time, 3 other friends rate each student's work. And the matching is done automatically, randomly by the computer. Nobody knows who rated my work. I don't know who rates my work, and I don't know either whose work I'm evaluating, so the anonymity is enforced. And the way to evaluate is to answer 20 questions that are criteria given by the teacher on a scale of 1 to 5, and they can give an overall comment optionally. Here's the dashboard for the teacher. After waiting for all the assignments to come in, the teacher closed the system, and each student will receive an email telling them whose work they should evaluate. And after that, after the evaluation is done, the scores are reported right away on the web page. They don't have to wait 2 weeks for the teacher to give back the comments. And they can see other people's scores too, but they cannot see their name because the names are, we use the cartoon characters' name as a pseudonym for their names. So there's no embarrassment here. And these are the scores from 3 friends. And these are the mean, the median, and the standard deviation of the score. So we have a little bit of idea of how reliable the scores are. And those 2 little icons are the comments that the friends give. some scores are not accompanied by any comments. Some scores have a very extensive comments. And the result from all this is that although we have a high participation rate in ratings, that means giving their friends some scores, only 38% of the scores are accompanied by a comment. Furthermore, this is the histogram of the length of comment. Most of the comments are very short and unhelpful. In fact, the average length of comment is just 53 characters, and 25 pieces of work did not get any comments at all. We have to address this fairness issue. When we look at the scores, if you see, these are, on the x-axis are the 74 students, and the green dots are the scores that they get from their friends. The red dots are the score that they get from the teacher. We find a small but significant correlation between the scores from the students and the scores from the teacher. However, the score from the teacher have a higher standard deviation than the score from the students. That means the students are afraid to give their friends too high of a score or too low of a score. They don't want to hurt their friends' feeling. At the same time, they don't want the means to be too high, otherwise it might hurt their grade. So from all this, we have learned some lesson. The first lesson we learned, or the brown bear has learned, is that the peer ratings or the scores from peers should not be used for the real final grade of the student. We also learned that we might have concerned too much about remaining anonymous for the raters. Maybe it's not as important as communication between students. And we want to reduce the workload for the student evaluators. Maybe rating 3 friends' work might be a little bit too much work. That means they cannot give too much details on each piece of the work. The criteria, instead of getting the criteria handed down by the teacher, the students should be able to develop or participate in developing their own criteria so that it will be more relevant to their nature of work. And also, even if some students are absent from class that day, no group or no piece of work should go without any evaluators at all. So we have to address this fairness or fair distribution of raters or evaluators. We take all those lessons and redesign our methodology from the ground up in the second design. This is a second design, a totally different design from the first one. Now, the students work in groups of 4 or 5 students, and each group is assigned an existing website. They study the website. They did not build this, but they have to study it and find what's wrong with this website. They make a list of 6 most critical issues that they want to fix on the website. And those issues later become their own criteria to grade their work. After that, problem finding, they make a new prototype of a website that they think would serve the population better than the original website. And that prototype is their work, the group's work, is evaluated by other students from many other groups. Notice here, we do not just match one group A to group B, and group A rates group B work and vice versa. Instead, we give the work from group A to many other students that may come from 5 different groups. And this is the reason we can do this is because the matching is done by computer algorithm, not by a human being, so that we can do a complex task. So this is the evaluation form. When you go in and rate your friend's work, they can see the criteria. They can give comments and star ratings, and this is something new. We take this idea of reaction cards from Microsoft. It is a quick way for the evaluator to give quick overall feeling to their friend's work. Each card contains an adjective. It can be positive or negative. And after all that, the student press done. But later we change the done button to submit because we don't want them to feel like this is all done, this is all finished. They can still go back and edit their own work and resubmit it again. In fact, ผมไม่อยากให้เด็กรู้สึกกดดัน so we ask them to press submit instead of pressing done. So and they see the comment after the evaluation is done. The next day, the next hour, they can see the comments and the score from their friends right away. Let's look at the scores. The score from the first round of evaluation are shown in the blue histogram. In the second round, the score improved as shown in the green histogram. It shifts to the right a little bit. And the red histograms are the scores from the teacher. We have a small correlation between the score from the first round, the blue dots, with the score from the second round, the green dots, and the scores of every group except just one improved from the first round to the second round. And that, I think, is a good incentive for students to participate in peer evaluation. We have looked at the scores. Let's now look at the comments. The length of comments, the blue dots, is correlated with the length of the criteria. That means if I write my own criteria as clear as possible, the comments are likely to be helpful as well. The length of comment is also affected by the score that their friends give them. Surprisingly, if if I give my friend a high score, I tend to write shorter comments. If the friend doesn't like your work, they tend to write longer comments. And this is a surprising effect. We didn't expect this. So other than the comments and the scores, they can also see the reaction words. And we plot the word cloud of all the reaction words, which mostly the top 10 words are all positive words. That means students who grade their friends' work highly tend to give more reaction words to their friends. Reaction words also give the teacher an idea of the difference in opinion between the teacher and the student. For example, works that are rated highly by the teacher are described with words such as boring, confusing, and complex by the peers. And that interesting result is a good formative feedback to the teacher to adjust their teaching style and maybe focus on some topics. What do we mean by complex system? What do we mean by a complicated user interface, for example? So to summarize, we have the scores act as a good incentive for students. The summary is tied with the lessons that we learned from the second iteration. The improvement in scores provide a good incentive for students to participate in peer evaluation. Also, we should try to make the student-defined criteria, although they develop it themselves, it should be as clear as possible. Because if you write it too short, the comments from your friends are likely to be short and unhelpful. We want to encourage students to write longer comments even if they like the work. Mostly the students, when they like their friends' work, they just say, fantastic, it's very good, it's very beautiful, and that's it. But when they don't like the work, they will point out different details of the flaws and how to improve, which we think is great for peer evaluation. But we also want to train them to be a good critical commenter. That means even if the work is already good in their eyes, we want them to give their friends chances or ways to improve the work. And on-demand matching algorithm, we changed the matching algorithm a little bit so that even if some students are absent from class that day and did not get to participate in peer evaluation, other people, all the groups, will get an equal number of evaluators, or different at most one. We ensure the fairness in distributing the evaluators by using a different computer algorithm. And I cannot go into detail here, but it's described in the paper. The raters can ask questions to the group in the second iterations, but by asking questions to the group, they risk exposing their own identity to the group, so the group will know who rates their work. We want, in the future work, we want to develop a system where the evaluator can ask questions anonymously with an online tool and get response back without knowing who writes what. And that's all that we have learned from the from our two designs of an online peer assessment system. Thank you for listening, and I welcome any questions. This QR code and this website, if you scan it, it will take you to a place that you can download the full paper and this slide presentation as well, and also contact information. If you want to see some of the comments that the students make to each other, there's a live website that demo this as well. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, please, Chanti.
So first of all, thank you very much, Prof. That is a really impressive work and presentation.
Thank you.
Actually, my question for me not about your work, but it's just myself. I mean, I always have questions with the peer review system using students. Because if you think about it, the score that I will get is not depend purely on the quality of my work, but it also depends on the justability skill of the one that read my work.
That's correct.
So I always have questions with this kind of system. And probably, as you have already said, that at the end we should not depend purely on this score. So I just would like to have some idea from you. What is the point of using the peer student? The peer review system using student. Is any good point, or you can suggest?
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good question, because that's exactly the question that we got by ourselves in the first round of our design, in the first iteration. The scores are rubbish, basically. There's no good correlation that we can use for the real grade. So we shift our focus from focusing on getting the reliable score. We think we give up on that idea. We don't think it's possible. So we focus instead on the quality of comments. Even if they give their friends all 5, even if the work is very bad, we want them to critique the work in a constructive way. And we encourage them to give their friends whatever they want to give, because it's not good. And we told them that it's not going to go into the final grade. It's just a point to some stars to give back to their friends, so that if you give their friends less than 5 stars, they're going to be interested in what you have to say in the comments. And we found that the comment section have improved in both quality and quantity of comments. So that's what we found. Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm impressed for your work.
ขอบคุณครับ Thank you.
One more thing, just a little point. I would like to ask, when you ask 3 persons to evaluate one, maybe you got 5-point rating scales, suppose that way, and you show mean and standard deviation. Please check standard deviation as well as check mean, because if higher standard deviation, the score is far out.
It's not reliable.
0. It means the 3 persons will not be congruent with those ideas.
Yes.
Not only check the mean. One more thing, correlation. I saw that minus 0.5 to me is like medium correlation. But instead of you telling us about minus correlation, what does it mean? You come to the conclusion that this means so and so. In your presentation, shows that your answers came from the correlation points. What else? Too old to think. My God. You have it seems to me when you do your work, it's very, very, very good. Really. However, I'm not sure for your presentation, you got to have a lot of objectives to answer. So, you know, you divide it into phases. This is the preliminary phase, whatever. And then the audience will understand you more, but you work very, very good.
Thank you very much for the comments, and we'll take that into account in the next, in the future work. Thanks.
Okay.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. I agree, you did a very good presentation. I also think your study has a lot of international significance because this is a topic that instructors are interested in all over the world, everywhere. And I think it's very interesting that you moved away from the focus on scores and moved to the focus on comments, and that you had these multiple iterations, and that, you know, it's a good lesson for other students to not just stop at the initial study, but say, okay, what did I find? And then use that as a springboard for your next study. And then, you know, you kept on going. So I thought that was also very interesting. And I would also just like to comment that you speak English very, very well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So is your Thai.
And I also very much appreciated that you're very brave, you know? You stood up there and rather than sitting down, I thought that was very good. And I thought your style of presentation, I felt very engaged the whole time. I just felt it was very compelling. It was very interesting. I think, you know, you're probably some kind of rising star in academia, I'm sure. Just one last question. Do you plan to, I know you had something online, but do you plan to publish in an international journal?
We want to do that when we have a stronger data. And the reason we come to this conference first is to gather all the feedback. And if anybody would like to try our software, we will be happy to distribute that and help you set it up. And we welcome any collaborations to any university or any classrooms.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. ขอบคุณมากครับ